Hello and welcome to part 3 of FEC TV's Marriage and Relationships Special. I'm going to start us off with a bit of a question here. Is monogamy shagged? Jay?
Shagged, I think, is a little bit strong, but it's certainly been fingered a little bit anyway. I think that relationships aren't quite what they were before, and certainly there's more relationships that are slightly alternative. Now, they're not all in the mainstream there, but practices have changed, and let's say, for example, Chris, open relationships.
Sure.
That is something, and even if you go on Facebook, if you go through your list of friends, sooner or later you will have a friend and the relationship status will be open relationship, and I think that's interesting. And once something like that happens and it's being made public that way, you can certainly see that relationship patterns are changing enormously.
But apart from pink, do you really think that normal people have open relationships?
Well, I just said exactly that, Breed. You know, I said, I mean, pink isn't on my list of Facebook friends, we'll put it that way.
Much as you'd wish it to be.
Well, yeah, probably, actually, yeah, totally. But yeah, no, I do think normal people have open relationships. I just don't think that it's very much publicised. I mean, look at it this way. 20, 30 years ago, gay relationships were not talked about. I mean, certainly in this country, in Ireland, homosexuality was a criminal offence. You would go to prison for it. Whereas now, in the last presidential... Yeah, they are. I mean, the last presidential election, we had a candidate who is openly gay and has partners, and that's fine. And certainly, you know, barring some scandals, he had a very good chance of getting elected. It looked like he was going to get elected initially. So in the same way that society looks differently on gay relationships now, I do think that it will be more accepting of, for example, open relationships and slightly different practices.
So we're saying when we go forward into the future, you're saying that actually the chance of open relationships, swinging, that kind of thing is going to be more prevalent?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, look at it this way. Over time, people are becoming more extroverted. This is a known fact. This has been studied. And that makes alternative style relationships slightly less alternative.
How alternative are we talking here? Are we going down the dogging route? Are we going to, you know, are we going that far?
What is dogging?
What? I don't know if you really want me to explain what dogging is.
I've never heard.
Go on.
Okay, well, let's just say you meet up in motorway laybys for casual sex.
Oh.
Yes, so that other people can watch you as well.
Oh yeah, it's all about the watching.
Yeah,
the voyeurism.
It's sort of like public performance, that kind of a thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
These things are happening?
These things are happening
these
more and more widespread, Breed.
Look, go on to youporn.com, type in dogging, and I know about your own particular stance on porn, by the way, Breed,
no.
but you're learning, you are learning.
It's an educational process.
You know, and well
I've
done. I know
recently
you haven't got the stick completely out of your ass yet, but you know, you've got it, it's not wedged quite up.
So come on, Jay, tell me why you really think that this is going to keep going, this is going to go into the future.
Because people are getting more selfish and individualistic, and there are less of the social pressures telling them that this is wrong. I mean, I think a real sort of milestone, and it probably happened around the 1960s, that something like sex outside of marriage became, you know, not this terrible, terrible, sinful thing. Phrases like living in sin started bit by bit to lose their potency. Exactly. I mean, now it's absolutely normal for couples to live together before marriage, whereas, like, even across the Western world, up to the 1960s and 70s, this was quite a controversial thing. Also, it was very controversial to have a child outside of marriage. These things are not as controversial now.
Do you reckon these things
by a long shot.
They're coming up from the underground, you reckon?
Yeah.
So we're saying in the future we're going to see more of the old bowl with the car keys in kind of situation.
I can't really predict the future, but yeah, probably.
Actually, interesting. I did actually discover a group in Cork here, which does this.
Discover it, Breed?
I won't say, but they charge €250 per person for groups of about 8 to 10 people, so 4 guys and 5 girls or whatever.
Whatever combination you'd like.
Whatever combination you're into on that day, but you actually have to apply to get into their little parties, so swingers parties. But apparently this is how it's done.
And this is here in Cork?
This is here. I'm just using it for a local example. So I mean, you do this, but you have to convince them that you're good looking. They've got to take your measurements because they don't want uggos going.
What kind of measurements are we talking?
well, I'm sure, but like they judge based on the best people they have. And my problem with this, if we're making it open and modern and things, is that this €250 per person adds up. There's nobody paying tax on this money.
Yeah, when you could go out and just, you know, pick a few people up yourself.
I mean, it's services. It should be charged at 23% VAT.
Well, look, okay.
Yeah, actually, do you know, that's a good point. I'm actually
Thank
thinking
you.
I want to
Lawyered.
organise these swingers parties and think as well of all the money that you'd be able to make by secretly filming it and putting it out online.
Now there you're onto a business.
Yeah.
I'm going to extrapolate what you said there, Jay, and push it one stage further, shall we say. I want to go and posit that actually in the future, polygamy is going to make a comeback. It's on the way, it's on the return. Now that's split down into polygamy, which is a man with many wives, or polyandry, which is a woman with many husbands. Brilliant thing. I think it's fantastic. Now, the religious aspect of this, there is nothing in the Bible that suggests against it, absolutely nothing. Martin Luther said it was absolutely fine.
I did read statistics that say 95% of mammals and 85% of human cultures believe in polygamy. I'm like, what word are we using?
Yeah.
They're non-monogamous.
They're not
which
monogamous.
I actually find hard to believe. I don't know how 85% of the world is not.
Well, the fact is that we've got what? We've got Islam, which is the fastest growing religion in the world at the moment.
Absolutely, yeah.
Part of it is that you can have up to 4 wives. We've got a leader down, we've got Jacob Zuma in South Africa who already has 4.
All these polygamy things are quite elitist. It's obviously, I mean, only the rich guys are going to be able to afford
it. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'd actually come in and argue against that.
Well, okay.
I'd have to jump in here because actually polyandry, which is the woman with many husbands, Tibet is the largest society in the world that practices polyandry and not, as we all know, potentially the richest society in the world. And over there, it's used practically. The men go out and work, they look after the kids, they do all that. Okay. No more forgotten birthdays, no more forgotten anniversaries. I think it's a fantastic thing. Not only that, I'm going to suggest that actually polyandry with one woman with many husbands is a fantastic form of birth control. Actually, interestingly, Rachel Masterson commented on our Facebook page earlier on to say, simply, isn't one bad enough? No, one's clearly not bad. Think of it like this, birth control, right? Mm-hmm. One woman with many husbands can only have one baby at a time. Those husbands go off and marry other people, they're creating more babies. Birth control, polyandry is the way forward. Purely from an economical point of view, what kind of a bed do they buy? And you know the way you fight, right? An extremely large one, I suspect. Do they all sleep together or do they take turns? They take turns, apparently. It was suggested that it was a once-nightly thing that they just kind of went on and the oldest went first.
Really? So there's seniority in it as well, yeah?
There's an aspect of seniority.
But actually, just on the point about the alternative relationships and the growing prevalence of it, I mean, what I would find interesting in terms of polygamy, polyandry, is how it's going to make the break in. Because certainly with something like swinging open relationships, if you look at some of the people who've indulged in that in the past, we can include Erwin Schrödinger, who was a Nobel Prize winner for physics, the whole thing of Schrödinger's cat. Yep. Warren Buffett, currently the richest man in the world. Yes. Yeah. And also this guy, Hugh Hefner. Examples of polygamous men. Okay, go on. I got Charles Manson, David Koresh of the Branch Davidsons, who were taken out by some Texas... Waco, yeah, WTF, that's right, yeah. He thought he was Jesus, to be fair.
Jim Jones of the Jonestown Massacre.
You keep going down the
saying homicidal nutcases, you know, I mean... Okay, look, some of these guys with many wives, to be fair, I would call them lovers, not fighters. Yeah. Okay?
Let me turn this around. I mean, that's obvious. Let me posit you a question.
What about the nice guys?
Hang on a second. Let me pose you a question here, because you're coming from the point of view that it's bad for the women. It's not a great thing. Think of it this way: polygamy benefits women. Okay. Say if 20% of the women out there were married to 10% of the men, you've got 80% of the women could have their pick of 90% of the men. Just think, if the pool is reduced, you've got the best guys to choose from. And let me ask you this one very simple question, Breed. Would you rather be the second or third wife of Brad Pitt or the only wife of James Riley? Yeah. That is a ridiculous... There you go. You see, it's a fantastic childcare. You could go out more. You know, it's fantastic. I looked into why relationships stay monogamous. Go on then. And my research shows that intimacy, it lowers the rates of depression basically because of the intimacy you have with one person. Your self-esteem, your self-confidence and everything is up as a result of having one stable person. It boosts your immunity. It heightens your heart ability to not die. Is this all the sex that they're having?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is...
I think it's just your mindset. You're more... hearty. Also, oxytocin. Oxytocin is the long-lasting hormone that's produced. And I mean, if you're just going from quick, short relationships to meaningless relationships, you're not producing oxytocin. Well,
there's a great quote from Woody Allen about that, you know, in terms of casual sex and meaningless relationships. You know, he said, you know, it's a meaningless experience, but as meaningless experiences go, it's pretty fucking good.
Well said.
Well,
Boom,
exactly.
boom.
But come on, tell me.
And Woody Allen's clever.
He is. So we were talking about marriage counselling and marriages going forward. Tell me more, Brie.
Well, I looked into
spoil more fun, Breed.
I looked into how to keep a relationship together in this day and age.
Obviously, the two men looked at how not to.
No, I found an interesting quote. Relationship therapy, once an indulgence of the rich and famous, now it's for normal couples, which really, I think sums it up quite well. Relationship therapy is something that the average, well, not the average necessarily couple, but couples, the average goer to relationship therapy are couples in their mid to late 30s with newly acquired kids.
Newly acquired. Stolen off the streets.
You're moving from your position of being just two of you to having a family, and that transition is sometimes difficult.
Is it not just
in
a
other words,
load
they're
of
just not shagging anymore?
Is it just not load?
And they're kind of used to each other.
Is this whole talking therapy though not just a load of old bollocks? I mean, frankly, are these not problems that people can solve themselves in their normal relationships?
Once you have a relationship therapist, you have got a ringmaster. You've got someone to stand between you, and when you start fighting with your partner, you use the same script over and over again. Whereas if you go to therapy, you get to move on.
But do you not then just move on to the next therapy session and the next load of money you're paying out?
On average, I found the therapy only lasts for short of 6 months. So you go once a week. You do 1 hour sessions generally for one session a week.
25 weeks. Yeah. I mean, that's
a lot of money.
A lot of therapy, a lot of money.
But these are serious problems. Your relationship will last your entire life. Yeah. It tends to be average of €80 a session. But if you're Catholic and man and woman, Accord will do cheaper sessions for you.
But think about this, Breed.
The Catholic Church are the last people I go to for any kind of relationship therapy. You're not
far wrong there.
Well, think about it.
But it's funny, I looked at the reasons. Apparently, relationship therapy is the only form of therapy that's actually up since the recession has hit. And it's specifically because of the recession. Relationships are under more pressure than ever, and people are finding it cheaper to go to therapy than to separate.
Breed, actually, I would absolutely agree with you there. I think that's a very good point. But keep in mind as well, like part of the thing about relationship therapy, this just occurred to me now, maybe it's a case that by going to relationship therapy, they're finally fucking doing something with each other, which they probably haven't been doing for quite a long time, that they're actually hanging out with, and you're dead right about the ringmaster thing, but they're actually hanging out with each other, and the reason it lasts 6 months is that after 6 months, they realise, hang on a second, maybe we shouldn't be spending all this money.
Look, at the end of the day, if we go down the polygamy route, how much more money are we paying out for therapy for the 6 wives or what have you we've got?
Oh no, I don't think anyone could afford that. But under the same umbrella as relationship therapy, sex therapy is also through the roof apparently, even though I found it very difficult to find a register of sex therapists in Ireland. There actually aren't a huge amount of sex therapists advertising their services.
Are we saying that the Irish can do it so well that they're sending their
services
across?
We're like exporting out sex therapists, yeah?
We'll take them in the UK, we need them.
According to stats, everyone's going to sex therapy, but it's difficult to find decent sex therapists. But
in that case, could anybody set themselves up as a sex therapist? Because, like, if there's no register, the only register I know of is like a sex offenders register.
Apparently you become a registered psychotherapist.
I just had another idea, business idea, man.
No, you become a registered psychotherapist and you specialise in sex therapy.
Okay.
But
would that
a
ruin
large
sex,
reason,
do you think, for you?
If
you're actually, breaking down sex as this scientific, mathematical thing all the time.
But that's interesting, because that's the reason sex therapy is on the rise. People are watching so much porn nowadays. We're comparing ourselves to the pornos, which I appreciate everybody watches and enjoys except for me. But according to our Facebook comments over the past few days. But people find themselves inadequate when they're watching all this porn at home nowadays, which is something that's increased, and as a result, sex therapy has gone
So
up.
they're going in for this, the porn envy.
But you've got if people are going home watching porn, you've got all these girls, you basically touch them and they're like, oh my God, I'm coming right now. That doesn't happen in real life, so people feel inadequate in normal relationships.
Maybe in your life, Jay.
Maybe
in yours.
Oh,
let's just bring it back now. In terms of going forward, what do we all think? In terms of how a relationship is going to go forward? Because personally, I think that polygamy is fantastic and it's the way. For me, I think it's the way.
Okay, well...
More of everything is always better. More is always better.
Think this guy in the School of Life, which does these weekend courses for couples, Mark Brickman, reckons that today's couples are increasingly throwing themselves into relationships and consequently expect more of their relationships.
Give me your full answer.
So I think that if we could learn to become more independent and more self-fulfilled, that our relationships one-on-one would give us everything.
The talking therapy is the way forward.
I think
okay, what I would say is I do think we're going to see more of the alternative open relationships, most likely we're going to see a lot of serial monogamy, which is it's pretty much what we have now. But I'd like to end with a quote from Johnny Depp, of all people.
No.
Mr. Depp said, "If you love two people at the same time, choose the second. Because if you really loved the first one, you wouldn't have fallen in love with the second one to begin with."
Deep. Lovely and deep.
I know.
This is good. This is an ongoing debate. Watch us Effect TV, comment on this, and we've got an interview coming up later in the week. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.